Most people spend their entire lives believing they experience reality directly. You open your eyes in the morning. You see your bedroom. You hear birds outside. You feel the floor beneath your feet. Everything appears immediate, effortless, undeniable. It feels as though the world simply enters your mind exactly as it exists. Yet modern neuroscience suggests something astonishing. That experience has never actually happened. Your brain has never seen the outside world, not once. It has never touched sunlight, never heard music, never smelled coffee, never felt the warmth of another person's hand, because your brain is locked inside complete darkness. Hidden safely inside your skull, it has no direct access to reality whatsoever. Everything it knows arrives as tiny electrical impulses traveling through billions of neurons. Light never reaches the brain. Only electrical signals do. Sound never reaches the brain. Only electrical signals. Texture, temperature, pain, smell, taste. Every experience you have ever had arrives in exactly the same language. Tiny bursts of electricity. Imagine sitting inside a windowless control room deep underground. You never leave the room. You never see the outside world. Instead, thousands of sensors continuously send streams of information onto computer screens around you. One camera points toward the sky. Another monitors traffic. Another detects temperature. Another records sound. Could you reconstruct the outside world? Probably, but only indirectly. You would never experience reality itself. You would only experience your interpretation of the incoming data. Your brain faces exactly the same challenge. The world never enters your consciousness. Only signals do. Everything else must be constructed. This realization transforms one of the oldest assumptions humans have ever made. Perception is not passive. It is creative. Perhaps the strangest example has been hiding in front of your eyes your entire life. Right now, both of your eyes contain a blind spot. Each retina has one tiny location where the optic nerve leaves the eye. There are no light-sensitive cells there. That portion of your vision is literally missing. If reality worked the way most people imagine, you should constantly notice two black holes floating somewhere in your field of view. You never do. Your brain quietly invents whatever should occupy those missing spaces. If a straight line passes through the blind spot, the brain simply continues drawing the line. If grass fills the surrounding area, the grass continues uninterrupted. If words pass across it, entire letters are reconstructed without your awareness. The remarkable part is not that the brain fills the gap. The remarkable part is that you never realize it happened. Your conscious experience feels perfectly complete. This is the first clue that perception is less like a camera and more like an artist. The camera records. The artist reconstructs. For centuries, scientists assumed the brain functioned like a sophisticated recording device. Light entered the eyes. The brain processed it. Reality appeared. Simple. Elegant. Wrong. Over the past several decades, researchers have gradually arrived at a radically different conclusion. Your brain does not wait for reality before creating experience. Instead, it predicts reality first. Only afterward does it compare those predictions with incoming sensory information. This framework is known as predictive processing. Some neuroscientists describe the brain as the most advanced prediction machine ever discovered. Every fraction of a second, it asks countless questions. Where will that object move? What word is this person about to say? What face am I looking at? What happens if I reach for this cup? What should gravity do next? Rather than calculating everything from scratch, the brain generates its best guess before complete information even arrives. Then it checks whether reality agrees. If the prediction is close enough, almost nothing changes. If reality differs significantly, the prediction gets updated. This strategy is astonishingly efficient. Imagine trying to understand every individual leaf while walking through a forest. Every shadow, every sound, every movement, every reflection. The amount of information would overwhelm any nervous system. Prediction solves that problem. Instead of processing everything equally, the brain focuses primarily on surprises. Most of reality is assumed. Only unexpected information demands attention. This explains why familiar environments often seem to disappear from awareness. You may drive the same route to work every morning and remember almost nothing about the journey. Not because your eyes stopped working, but because your brain predicted nearly every detail before it happened. Very little required conscious attention. Your experience was largely assembled from expectation. only something unusual. A child running into the road, a flashing ambulance, an unexpected detour forces consciousness to wake up. In other words, awareness is often reserved for prediction errors, not for ordinary reality. Perhaps this is why life sometimes feels as though it moves faster with age. As our internal models become richer, fewer experiences surprise us. The brain predicts more. It notices less. Reality begins feeling increasingly familiar, and familiarity requires remarkably little attention, which leads to an unsettling possibility. If your brain is constantly predicting the world before fully observing it, how much of what you call reality is actually being constructed from expectation rather than perception? Perhaps the world you experience every day is not simply discovered. Perhaps, moment by moment, it is being imagined first. If the idea that your brain predicts reality sounds unsettling, the next discovery is even stranger. Those predictions do not simply influence what you notice. They influence what you literally experience. In other words, your brain is not merely observing the world. It is continuously generating its own version of it. Neuroscientist Anil Seth describes conscious perception with a phrase that initially sounds impossible. He calls it a controlled hallucination. The word hallucination immediately brings unusual images to mind. People seeing things that are not there, hearing voices, experiencing impossible worlds. But that is not what he means. Instead, he argues that ordinary perception itself is already a carefully controlled hallucination. The difference is that most of the time, our brains happen to agree with the outside world. Reality acts like an editor. It constantly corrects the brain's predictions before they drift too far away from what actually exists. Imagine watching a movie projector. The images already exist inside the projector before they ever reach the screen. The screen does not create the movie. It merely constrains it. Your brain works in a surprisingly similar way. Before light reaches your eyes, before sound reaches your ears, before your fingertips touch an object, the brain has already begun constructing its best explanation of what is about to happen. Incoming information does not create perception. It edits prediction. This explains one of the strangest facts about everyday life. Two people can experience the exact same event and walk away believing they lived through completely different realities. Imagine two coworkers attending the same meeting. The manager asks difficult questions. Several ideas are challenged. Nobody raises their voice. Nothing dramatic happens. Hours later, one person tells a friend, "That meeting went really well." Another says, "I think everyone was criticizing me." The recording of the meeting would look identical for both people. Yet their experiences feel completely different. Why? Because perception never begins with reality alone. It begins with expectation. If one brain quietly predicts rejection, neutral facial expressions suddenly seem cold. Silence feels uncomfortable. Constructive feedback sounds like personal criticism. Meanwhile, another brain predicting acceptance interprets the very same expressions as thoughtful attention. The same pauses become moments of reflection. The same questions become curiosity instead of judgment. Neither person consciously chooses these interpretations. Their brains generate them automatically, long before conscious reasoning begins. Perhaps nowhere is this easier to observe than in optical illusions. Consider the famous checker shadow illusion. Two squares appear completely different shades of gray. One seems almost white. The other appears dark charcoal. Yet if measured with a computer, both squares possess exactly the same color value. Your brain refuses to believe it. Not because your eyes are malfunctioning, because your brain prioritizes what seems most likely over what is physically correct. It assumes one square lies beneath a shadow, so it automatically brightens it. The brain is not reporting reality. It is correcting reality according to its internal model. Another remarkable example comes from hearing rather than vision. Imagine watching someone pronounce the syllable be. Now replace the sound with gay. Surprisingly, many people no longer hear either word. Instead, they clearly hear da. This phenomenon is known as the McGurk Effect. Your ears receive one signal, your eyes receive another. Rather than choosing one, the brain invents an entirely new experience. You are not hearing the actual sound. You are hearing the brain's best compromise. Reality has become negotiation. Even the feeling of owning your own body turns out to be surprisingly flexible. In the famous rubber hand illusion, volunteers place one real hand behind a screen while a realistic rubber hand rests in front of them. Both hands are stroked with identical movements. Within minutes, something extraordinary happens. The brain begins treating the fake hand as part of the body. When researchers suddenly threaten the rubber hand with a hammer, people often flinch. Some even experience genuine fear. Nothing changed outside the brain. Only the brain's prediction about what belonged to the body. This reveals something deeply unsettling. The sense of me is not fixed. It is constructed, moment by moment, prediction by prediction. Perhaps this also explains why expectations possess such extraordinary power over health itself. Doctors have long observed the placebo effect. Give someone an inactive pill while convincing them it is powerful medicine, and genuine biological changes often occur. Pain decreases, symptoms improve, heart rate changes, hormones shift. The body responds not merely to chemicals, but to expectation. The opposite also exists. It is called the Nocebo effect. If someone strongly believes a harmless treatment will produce unpleasant side effects, the brain may generate those symptoms despite the absence of physical danger. Expectation becomes physiology. Belief becomes biology. Notice the pattern emerging across all these examples. Vision, hearing, touch, pain, emotion, even the sense of self. None operate like passive recordings. All depend upon prediction. The brain continually asks one simple question. What is the most likely explanation for everything happening right now? Not, what is objectively true? Those questions sound similar. They are not. One searches for certainty. The other searches for usefulness. Evolution never promised us perfect accuracy. It promised survival. A brain capable of making fast predictions often survives better than one waiting patiently for complete information. Seeing danger 1 second too early is usually safer than recognizing it 1 second too late. Predictions saved lives long before it occasionally created illusions. But this creates an extraordinary possibility. If your experience of reality depends partly upon prediction, then changing those predictions might gradually change the reality you experience. Not by changing the outside world, but by changing the model through which your brain constructs it. And that raises perhaps the most hopeful question of all. If your brain has been quietly hallucinating reality your entire life, could it also learn to hallucinate a better one? If your brain helps construct the reality you experience, that may sound frightening. It seems to suggest that certainty is impossible, that nothing can be trusted, that every experience is merely an illusion. But neuroscience points toward a very different conclusion. The brain's predictions are not prisons. They are models, and models can be updated. In fact, they are designed to be updated. Every prediction your brain makes is really a hypothesis, a remarkably sophisticated one, but still a hypothesis. Whenever reality disagrees with that prediction, something fascinating occurs. Neuroscientists call it a prediction error. Imagine someone who has quietly believed for years, "I'm terrible at public speaking." Their first presentation feels terrifying. Their second is only slightly better. Their third still produces anxiety. Yet something unexpected happens. People applaud. A colleague compliments their explanation. Another asks thoughtful questions. The prediction and reality no longer match. At first, the brain resists. It was luck. They were just being polite. It won't happen again. Because changing a long-established model requires evidence. Not once, but repeatedly. Over time, however, something remarkable begins to happen. Every successful conversation, every presentation, every positive interaction creates another prediction error. Eventually, the old model becomes too expensive to maintain. The brain quietly rewrites it, not overnight, not through positive thinking, but through accumulated evidence. This may explain why genuine confidence rarely arrives all at once. It is not a decision. It is an update. The same principle lies behind one of the most effective treatments for anxiety: exposure therapy. To someone observing from the outside, exposure therapy can seem almost too simple. Someone afraid of elevators gradually rides elevators. Someone terrified of spiders slowly approaches spiders. Someone afraid of social situations begins having conversations. The goal is not to force bravery. The goal is to generate prediction errors. Each safe experience tells the brain, your prediction was slightly wrong after enough repetitions. The prediction itself changes. Notice what did not change. The elevator remained the same. The spider remained the same. The room remained the same. Reality outside the brain barely moved. The model inside the brain did. This is one of the central ideas behind neuroplasticity. The brain is not a finished machine. It is an unfinished process. Every experience slightly reshapes the networks responsible for future predictions. In a sense, today's perception becomes tomorrow's expectation. This also explains why lasting personal change often feels surprisingly ordinary. People frequently imagine transformation arriving through one extraordinary moment, one life-changing seminar, one inspirational speech, one perfect book, one profound realization. Those moments certainly exist, but they are rarely enough by themselves, because the brain trusts experience more than inspiration. A single motivational conversation may feel powerful, yet hundreds of ordinary experiences gradually carry far greater weight. One successful friendship, one difficult apology, one honest mistake survived, one unexpected opportunity accepted, one uncomfortable conversation completed. None feel revolutionary while they are happening. Yet together, they quietly rewrite the brain's model of reality. Perhaps this is why people often underestimate how much they are changing. Growth rarely announces itself. The brain updates silently, prediction after prediction, day after day, until one afternoon you encounter a situation that once terrified you and realize you responded differently without even trying. Not because you forced yourself, because your brain no longer predicts the same danger. Perhaps the most beautiful consequence of predictive processing is this: you are never seeing the world exactly as it is, but neither are you condemned to seeing it exactly as you always have. Every new experience becomes an opportunity for revision. Every meaningful conversation, every unexpected kindness, every mistake survived, every fear confronted, adds another piece of evidence, slowly teaching the brain that reality may be larger than its previous assumptions. Perhaps this is why curiosity is so psychologically powerful. Curiosity interrupts certainty. Instead of saying, "I already know how this will end," it asks, "What if my prediction is incomplete?" That single question opens the door to learning. Children naturally live this way. Everything surprises them. Everything becomes information. Everything updates the model. As adults, we often mistake familiarity for truth. We assume our predictions have become reality. Yet the healthiest minds seem to preserve something childlike, not childishness, curiosity. The willingness to let experience prove them wrong. Perhaps wisdom is not accumulating more certainty. Perhaps wisdom is becoming increasingly comfortable updating your model of the world. Again, and again, and again. Which brings us back to the question we began with. Is your brain hallucinating reality? In one sense, yes. Every moment of conscious experience is constructed inside your mind, not copied from the outside world. But the remarkable part is not that your brain creates reality. The remarkable part is that it never stops improving its creation. Every prediction, every correction, every surprise, every discovery quietly reshapes the world you experience tomorrow. So perhaps the most profound truth is not that you fail to see reality. It is that reality and your brain are engaged in an endless conversation. The world offers evidence. Your brain offers predictions, and your conscious experience emerges somewhere in between. You have never experienced reality exactly as it is. No human being ever has. But each day, you have another opportunity to see it a little more clearly than yesterday. Perhaps that is what learning has always been. Not collecting more facts, but gradually teaching the mind to hallucinate less and understand more.